my lovelies, I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and this is part 2 of social media as an author. In part 1, we went over some pitfalls of social media, like it's forever and thrives on negativity, and you can't delete things and just walk, and if you can't walk away and learn to breathe and not argue with people, you might not want to be on social media, especially as an author. And the biggest piece of advice I gave at the end was to choose a singular name, whether this is your author name or a pseudonym or whatever, to use across various platforms. To be your brand rather than something about your books. Like, I could have been heavensheathens.com, but that would have locked me into writing biker werewolf novels, and only biker werewolf novels. And even back when I was first publishing The Lone Prospect, I knew that I wanted to be more than just biker werewolves as much as I love my biker werewolves. So I went with Ginny 0, the number 0, or Ginny O, as my pseudonym. And then later, my sister's ex-husband's new wife was recommended my book by my nephew. And she typed, it was on Facebook, and he sent me a picture of it, and he was like, she's like, doesn't she have a last name? I'm like, so I was like, that's really funny, so I will be the author with no last name, like the man with no name from certain Western movies, that's Sierra Leone Western movies. So, that's how that came about. So I decided pretty early on I wanted to be Ginny O or Ginny 0 across all platforms, and it didn't work out exactly the way I wanted because, on Twitter I had to be Ginny 0 as Z-E-R-O, on WordPress it was Ginny the number 0, and on Tumblr it was by the time I'd done Tumblr, went to Tumblr, I had the 2, and I was like, oh, I'll just use Ginny 0 and stuff. And then I came here and it was Ginny O, and it's like, ugh. So, but choose something that's like similar that people are gonna be like, oh, okay, I know how to find you in other places to do your author brand. Now, we can talk about the pitfalls of having multiple author names another time, maybe, I don't know. But there are people who will have multiple author names because on one name they're writing thrillers, and on the other name they're writing middle grade fantasy. So there are authors who do that. I know in the professional field, let's say Seanan McGuire. Seanan McGuire is known for her October Day series and her Wayward Children series under the Seanan McGuire name. So she's kind of writing these urban fantasies and kind of what happens when the children come back from Portal Fantasyland books under that name. But she has another name on which she was writing these really dense science fiction type thrillers with viruses and stuff like that, and I don't remember the name, but her publisher was like, yeah, we need to give you a different pseudonym for those books. We're not going to hide that it's you, because trying to hide that you're writing under a different pseudonym anymore is impossible, but we do want to put it out under a different name because these don't really fit in with what you're writing on your Seanan McGuire name. She was like, oh, okay. So this also can happen with a singular person, depending on if they're writing the same genres, but they are writing for different age groups. So for, say, young adult, they're Victoria Schwab. But for adult, they're V.E. Schwab. And that's just like kind of so you can look at the author name and know who the target market is, and also some things that go on in the adult target marketing of adult books, particularly in the fantasy and science fiction thing that is slowly ending. But that these books are books she writes for young adult people, the young adult peeps, and these are books she writes for the adult peeps. So just so you know, you can do that too. Okay, but So let's talk about social media and social media. So how do we go about this? All right. So the first thing we do not do, especially in this day and age, is talk about writing advice. And you're going to see a lot of authors who are like, oh, it's just so easy to go onto Twitter and leave 50 pieces, do 10 pieces of writing advice and talk to 40 other people and call it a day. And, they do that in under 2 hours. Okay, that's nice. But that's not getting you readers. That's getting you other writers. All right? And other writers, well, we might read voraciously, are not exactly the target market for your book. I had, a bunch of people follow me on Twitter that were also other authors, and some of them were even science fiction and fantasy authors. I can count on one hand how many of them actually bought and read my book. And, I was doing free book reviews, and I can also count on one hand how many people actually gave me their book so to review. And I did I did read some of them, and I was just like, I can't review this because you know it would probably get me a lot of views, but I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to have this out here, this is what you don't do type of thing. So reading indie books, in reading traditional books, it's almost the same ratio. So of books that you're going to find that you like versus books you're going to find that you can't get through. So, it was 2 to 8, out of 10, it was 2 books I could get through and review versus 8 I couldn't, in indie. And for traditional, it's like 3 I can get through and 7 I can't, so it's really close. It's a really close ratio. So if you are doing writing advice, you're going to get other authors, and these authors are probably not going to be the people who are going to buy your book, as much as we love and want to support our fellow authors. All right, so first things first. So doing writing advice is not likely going to get you anywhere unless you have something in your resume that gives you authority for writing advice, like you were an agent or something, a agent for a literary agency. And because right now the entire YouTube landscape and the Twitter landscape, I don't know about TikTok, is flooded with authors giving writing advice. And that's why I don't do a lot of it myself. I mean, I have done some Authortube stuff, like I did a whole bunch of Authortube stuff last month, but that's because it's so flooded that, it's like, okay, we got to start separating some wheat from the chaff here. Let's talk about separating this, you know. But once again, I treat this as a fireside chat. I'm not trying to sell you anything, even myself anymore, because I just don't have that type of energy. Okay, so what have I seen that's actually kind of worked? Okay, doing book reviews. Even if you're doing negative, snarky book reviews, this is going to bring you people. Okay, my positive book reviews do not bring people, and they have less than 25 views each. Booktober does. If I had done a snarky book review or like Trader Brew Cormorant, I probably would have a lot more views, but then I'd be locked into doing snarky book reviews, and I don't want to do that. I am not that type of person. But if you do book reviews and you get a following of people who are readers of the genre of books you're reviewing, and I do mean that, choose a genre, stick to it. I have, I like Jess Owen's book Community, but I don't watch her book reviews because she's not usually reading in a genre I want to read. But if you like the book reviews, the genre Jess Owen reads, then awesome, that's great. She probably has really good reviews for you. There has been at least one book reviewer who ended up independently publishing a book, and then he immediately turned around and started interfacing with his reviewers, even though he had been totally against that before. So he went from, here are book reviews, here's like opinions of what I have about books I'm reading, to I've written a book, to I've become an author behaving badly in like a span of a year. It was really weird. But don't just so skip the last part. And if you love books, you do a lot of reading between, your writing, and you want to do book reviews, that is a good way to get readers versus getting authors, okay? All right. Well, let's talk about a couple people that didn't do book reviews and still managed to get author contracts and or publish their books in different ways. Okay, so Iron Rideau is kind of famously known as being a kind of like a book that was promoted through social media and got onto the New York Times bestseller list because she was on social media. Now, how she started was she did a YouTube video going on over the Chinese elements in Disney's new live action Mulan. At the time, she was working on her manuscript already. She had a TikTok. So she continued on YouTube. She continued to talk about Chinese culture in Western media, which brought her a lot of views for that, which is not normal. She managed to strike while the iron was hot. Um, and then on TikTok, she would be wearing Chinese culture inspired clothing because she's Chinese Canadian, I believe. I'm probably wrong with that, but I know she's either in the Canada or she's in France, one of the two. And she also did a lot of skits about the French Revolution, dressed up as Robespierre, and she also talked a lot about Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess, because she really likes Yu-Gi-Oh. And that's how she got like her Twitter blue check mark at the time, was she did this like petition about Yu-Gi-Oh entering the Olympics, the card game. So uh, while she was doing all that, she entered the Pit Mad competition on Twitter. And the Pit Mad competition is you submit a log line, and if they like your log line, basically, and your genre, they'll ask to see like 5 pages of your book, and if they like the 5 pages of your manuscript, you win Pit Mad. If you win Pit Mad, basically what you are winning is a mentorship from a literary agent who has editorial skills. So they'll help you with your manuscript. They'll help you edit your manuscript, and then they'll help you pitch it. They'll, as an agent, pitch it to editors and editors to publishing companies. So she won Pit Mad, and you can tell that the book won Pit Mad. It's pretty well written. I mean, her skills, she has skills, and then, the agent was able to help her edit the thing. It's well edited, let me put it that way. I have read plenty of books in the past year that weren't. So it was pretty well edited, and she got a contract, and she got the New York Times and she used her social media to promote the book and New York Times bestseller. But she didn't start by saying, I have a book, go buy my book. Okay, she started with, this is Chinese stuff in Disney movie and it's right or it's wrong. That's what she started with. Okay. Now we're gonna focus specifically on TikTok, but you can probably use, because of YouTube Shorts, you can use some of this for YouTube as well. Let's talk about like 3 different people who do cooking videos. Okay, so there's the Tavern Guy, who does like the ASMR videos, Dylan Hollis, who does I'm shouting at the camera in my kitchen videos, doing old recipes. And then there's the Glam Kitchen, okay? So the Tavern Guy, he wears a costume, he's got a little set for a bar set that he's pretending is a medieval tavern, and he makes you drinks or food or whatever. He welcomes you to the tavern and everything. And it's a vibe for D&D players. It's really fun. Like, some of the stuff he makes is really kind of interesting. And, people find it soothing. He's paying attention to you, like that type of thing. And he decided he wanted to make a cookbook for his tavern, and he decided to go through Kickstarter through it. which is one way of doing it, which is one way to go. So once he had enough viewers, and he was, you know, getting upwards of 1 million views for video, he started putting out there that they were going to kickstart this cookbook for everybody, and they were going to get it illustrated and everything, and how much money they were going to need, and, you know, sending them to Kickstarter to look at it. So that's how he got his cookbook. It's either in the process or done. I'm not sure which, but that's how he did it. Now, the Glam Kitchen. Okay, I know I'm going out of order, but the Glam Kitchen, Tsunami, it's not her name. She dresses up in really pretty clothes, and she wears big hats, and she makes Spanish and Mexican food on her TikTok. And she's not an author. No, what she is a musician. So she's a singer. So she uses her glam kitchen videos at times to promote new songs. So she'll be doing something in the kitchen, and she'll have to like go away to rent something, and it will promote a song, one of her new songs, and then it will come back to her doing whatever, or like she'll do a bit where she's singing in her kitchen while she's doing the glam kitchen. The glam kitchen is a really small part of her TikTok, but it is one of the more popular parts of her TikTok. So her and her boyfriend and the cooking, I think it's great. It's just great. The third person is Dylan Hollis, which we probably all know from Cooking Yesteryear now. What happened was, I don't know the exact order, if he decided he wanted to write a cookbook of all his drawing recipes from all his old cookbooks that he collects, and then decided to do he already had the TikTok going where he was like new car versus old car and playing his accordion, but he decided to like bake something during the pandemic. It was the potato cake, and it went viral. And I don't know if going viral was like, maybe I should make a cookbook, or if he did the potato cake in hopes it would go viral, and, because he had the plans for the cookbook. I don't know which. But he started doing these minute-long cooking videos using old recipes, usually bad recipes, like, hey, is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? Anywhere from the early 1800s to I think the latest one is like a 1980s recipe, because yes, 80s is vintage now. Oh, I feel so old. So it's like vintage recipes, and he managed to, probably because of the number of views on his TikTok, he wrangled a contract with Penguin Random House. I mean, he probably went and he pitched his cookbook to a bunch of agents, and he was like, I have this TikTok with all these followers, and they'll buy a cookbook, and Penguin Random House decided to pick him up. Okay, that's how he did it. Okay, one more person, almost forgot, and this one's even more relevant because she is publishing a book right now. So, woman, mom, red hair, I don't know her name. She did this entire TikTok series over a year about princesses, a princess, like, and she was doing it because she was actually writing a book, and she didn't have her manuscript finished, but she wanted to get people excited about it. But she does these, like, it was kind of like parodies of Disney princesses type of thing, and the book is called Just Stab Me Now. And she used the TikTok, these little comedic shorts on TikTok to basically get people hyped up for the idea of a satire Disney princess book. And she's doing this independently. So she's going through Ingram Spark and I think Draft2Digital. So she's using Draft2Digital and Ingram Spark. Draft2Digital for all the ebook stuff, and Ingram Spark because of for the print stuff. And Ingram Spark is a printer, not a vanity publisher, just so you know. So she's using, she's probably using Draft2Digital in my experience, because she's getting her book into Barnes & Noble. And if you are on Draft2Digital, you can do that. So Her book's going to be available at on the Barnes & Noble website. I don't know if it's going to be available in stores or not. But she did all these little shorts, and she's just like, then I had to hurry up and finish writing the manuscript so I could strike while the iron was hot, you know, type of thing. I didn't, oh my god, I had to rush this, and I'm so sorry, it's probably more rushed than I wanted it to be. But, like, she did all these kind of comedic shorts to get people interested in that concept, and once, you know, she had them hooked on the concept, went, oh, I'm writing a book. That's how you do it, okay? There's a couple more people on TikTok that we could use examples of. There's a Scottish deaf comedian, and I think part of it, he was using his TikTok to try to get acting gigs because he wants to be an actor, but he also does some writing. He has his Broden comedy channel and his Broden writes channel on Tumblr, and like he's gonna be like writing a children's book, I hope. Like he's made noises about it. I'm like, okay, well now you gotta do something on your TikTok about that, you know, to promote it, but please get it done. Because he wore a costume for work and somebody asked like, what character are you? So he made something up off the fly, and now he's like, no, I want to write it. So at least, but he has an audience because of the comedy he does on his TikTok of, you know, being Scottish and being deaf, you know, why Robin Hood needs a deaf character. It's really funny stuff. So, like, that's a good way to do it. Another one is, once again, in the sketches type of line. There's one guy on Twitter who does all these sketches, like, you know, stabbing Caesar, but all you have are plastic knives, Jesus taking over the Yule holiday and how the Christmas tree could stay, but everybody else had to go. And he's doing every single part, and he's wearing these costumes every single time. I don't think he's ever going to have written a book, but it's a good way to get people to come to his channel and see his comedy type of thing. So basically, what you're going to want to be doing is not be like the Light Lark lady, okay? What happened with Light Lark was Alessandra was putting out this, like, oh, my hard writer's life. Yeah, her daddy is a billionaire in Nashville, Tennessee, because he owns all the freaking car dealerships. But, like, oh, my hard writing life. And she made this, like, TikTok trailer which really appeased the algorithms because it had all these, like, it's this meets this, and it's got all these tropes in it, and don't you want to see this as a book? And it got a lot of views because it was kind of hitting everything that Romantasy was going for at the time. So she got a contract, but she didn't have a manuscript. And so just make sure you have a manuscript before you put up like any kind of book trailer or anything, because everything I've seen about Lightlark, despite the fact that the internet is negative, a lot of times has been very negative. And I mean, she probably had a 3-book contract, so the second book has come out. I don't know how many more books you're gonna have after that, but it's kind of like, you know, it's my personal feeling of, man, I would love as an indie author to be on some of these book review channels, but I'd also be really terrified as an indie author to be on these book review channels because I know negativity fuels the internet, so they'd probably be ripping my book apart, and I don't want to be that indie author. You know? It's like watching Dominic Noble, who does the he does the comparing Lost in the adaptation stuff. He compares books to their movie adaptations, and he's been doing some indie books recently because of the writer's strike, and it's just like, oh, I understand why he's doing what he's doing. It's just, it feels like kind of skeevy that he's giving attention to all these really bad books when there are so many indie authors out there that have really good books that he, you know, maybe he could be giving them a boost instead. But once again, the YouTube algorithm thrives on negativity, so I understand why he's doing it, because he doesn't want to lose views until he can go, you know, until he can go back to Lost in the adaptation stuff, which now that the SAG strike and the writer strike is over, he can start doing again. Lucky him. But So you're going to be, that's what you're going to be doing. Is you're going to be looking for something in your books, like a theme or an interest or something, and applying that to whatever channel you do. Whether it's a YouTube channel or TikTok channel. Like, okay, for instance, if I was going to try to promote Cafe Torti through TikTok, I would probably be trying to come up with some sort of little set that looks kind of 1950s, or at least the 1950s costume with some cat ears, and be making, you know, we're gonna make this sandwich from Cafe Torti or whatever. Like, that's what I would do. But I just do not have that type of energy. I really don't. You're just going to be looking for a topic or a way of promoting your work that's not going, oh my god, I have a book, I have a book, I have a book, or writing advice. That's what's really going to get you ahead. Like, so book reviews, uh, little skits, just some sort of, I don't know. If you're doing cooking, it's usually because you have a cookbook, okay? But things like that, that you know will eventually, you know, lead into your book. Now, Lindsay Ellis, you can't really go the Lindsay Ellis route because Lindsay Ellis was on the internet for like 20 years, and it was not necessarily her follower account that got her the book deal. I mean, her book was a really hard sell, but the stuff that she was doing really didn't have much to do with her book, even though she was selling a book. And once again, if you are trying to do Authortube and be like, oh, I have a book, like writing advice and I have a book, you have to be really well established at this point. I'm not seeing anybody doing that hasn't been doing writing advice for at least 4 or 5 years at this point. So you're more likely to get noticed if you're doing funny skits, or if you're doing book reviews, or you're talking about something in media that's related to your book. Like people who have published, you know, trans people who have been talking about stuff and then they publish a book about trans issues, that's pretty normal. I'm still waiting for the one person to, Jessie Gender. I'm waiting for her to put out a book, actually. So I'm just like, I'm really curious to see what that would be about, what she would write about. People who get YouTube and TikTok followers who do put out books, you've got to have something in your TikTok or following that is related to the book. That's really the most important part. Like, I'm never going to sell werewolf biker books with an SEO that's focused on a horse game, okay? I would maybe be able to sell horse books, but not werewolf biker books. Right? That's just the way it goes. So, choose your thing. Choose a name. Choose it across all platforms. Don't change it too much. And choose how you're going to promote. Like, I'm really wary of calling it a shtick or a gimmick, but that's kind of what it is. That's what sales really is. It's finding that thing in your work and being able to take it and promote it on your name for that particular work type of thing. Yes, it's going to be a lot of work because, so what happened was when the Iron Ritter author, when she got her contract, it really wasn't enough to pay her bills. Most author advances aren't, and because we are paid the least. And so she had to continue using her social media to bring in money to pay her bills, so she had to focus more on her social media than writing the second book. And that's why the second book is late. It's because she was wanting to make this a full-time job, and she ended up having to focus more on the social media part of the full-time job, the marketing part of her full-time job, because that was bringing in the views and bringing in the money versus the book and the book sales weren't bringing in as much money as she hoped. She also sold another book, a middle grade book, I believe, and that was China Meets Yu-Gi-Oh, whereas the other one was China Meets or Ender's Game kind of, and she, you know, the way she describes it, I would not describe. That's not the book at all. So it's she, be aware that once you kind of start doing this, you really can't stop, especially if you're making money at it. Like, and you getting a author contract might not mean you can do the author thing full time. And even if you do get an author contract, your own social media might be the only marketing you get, because the industry is in a very bad place right now. And I do mean that. There's a reason why I'm not trying to get into it. So just be aware that, but still, my biggest thing is if you are on here and you get in an argument with somebody, or you want to constantly pick arguments with people and you can't walk away without deleting your account, don't start. Please. And don't publish a book. If you think you're going to get into arguments with reviewers, don't publish a book. Because that's just one way that you end up on Reads with Rachel of authors behaving badly. You don't want to be there. Okay? Being on, even just doing these fireside chats, I have to be so careful. And you have to be really watching what you're saying, and being able to stand behind what you say, and really become comfortable with not caring what strangers think about you on the internet. Like, my personal thing is, as long as I am not hurting anybody, which is why I try not to use racist, homophobic, transphobic, able-bodied, or misogynistic language. It's like I don't want to hurt other people, even unintentionally. As long as I am not hurting people, or like using stereotypes in my books, and racist stereotypes or bigoted stereotypes in my books that could hurt people in real life, notice that's different than non-con and other stuff like that. I can put my opinion out there, but that's my personal thing. Like, I have set up rules for myself. So you got to find your own personal limitations, and, give yourself some grace to fail every once in a while. Apologize when you do fail. It will never be enough, but do try to apologize. But, you got to learn to be comfortable in your own self and be like, I said what I said. And, when you do make this mistake, walk it back and be like, and be honest about it. Don't say things like, well, I didn't mean to do this. I didn't, or that's not what I meant. No, you said what you said. Apologize for what you said. And, then we can move on. Type of thing. Don't try to justify your bad position with more bad positions, okay? It doesn't work. People see through it. All right. So, next time, I'm going to talk about Tumblr in specific, because Tumblr is different than every other social media website out there. And I just want to do a very specific Tumblr-oriented video. Right? Take care of yourselves, my lovelies. Bless, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.